What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Lost Records Journal podcast, Player One vs. Lost Records Focus podcast. I don't have my co-host Adam with me. I don't have my co-host Abby from my other podcast with me, but I have a very special guest to fill in here. You'll know her as Kat's older sister, sometimes nice, sometimes mean to Swann, sometimes good. You might sometimes see her speaking to the Milk and Bone girls in an Abyss video, or sometimes she's cleaning a hotel as Sophie in This Bed We Made. Victoria Diamond, who plays Dylan Mikaelsen, a voiceover and motion capture, is with me. Victoria, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's very hot in Montreal today, but I'm good.
I feel you. We've just had a 3-day heat wave in the UK, and I'm really enjoying the week because it's just started raining, and I'm like, I miss the rain. So I feel for
Yes,
you with
yeah.
heat.
It's like
Uh,
tropical.
that's.
Yeah.
Is it always like that?
It's thick. No, it's not always like, I mean, it's usually like, I don't know do you guys use Fahrenheit or Celsius? It's usually like -20 here for 5 months a year. And now we're just enjoying really extreme weather on the other end. So,
It's always one end of the east. Like I like heat, but nowhere near as hot as it gets here. And I always say to people, if it
mhm.
comes to the UK, it's just a different level of heat compared to what people
Yeah.
experience. So I can't imagine what you guys are going through there. But I'm thankful that you're here as well, because obviously it's been amazing to get you here to talk. And obviously we're going to talk about Lost Records. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So before we start, guys, if you are new here, please do consider dropping subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share with your friends. You can support the channel. And Lost Records Journal is available on all podcast services. So we're available on Spotify with a video version, Apple Podcasts. We have over 150 followers on Spotify. We have almost 40 ratings on Spotify. So please do go and rate us and follow us, because you get instant access to the episodes as soon as they become available, just like this episode with Victoria. So to start with, Victoria has not played the full Lost Records game. She is the exact same as Olivia and Amelia. That was many years ago that she's shot this, and she's thankfully come on here to relive those experiences, to really show us what she can remember, what she can't remember. But obviously, people who are very familiar with my channel know that the interviews are always about the actors and their experiences on these games, because that's always the best part to see it. But Victoria, obviously, before we start, I think the easiest way to start, and it's always the most cliche way to start, is, well, who is Victoria Diamond? Because I know her from This Bed We Made, I know her from the Abyss video, I know her from Lost Records, but who are you?
So it's time to dispel the mystery.
Right?
I'm a human person, and
Oh,
I'm originally from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Do you know where that is?
yes, but I want to be able to put on a map for you, though. That's the only thing.
Okay, so it's the eastern tip of Canada, and it's on the
Ah,
Atlantic Ocean.
nice.
Yeah, so think kind of landscapes that are very foggy. It kind of feels like Ireland or Scotland.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, a lot of Celtic, Irish heritage. There's a lot of bagpipes and fiddles. And yeah, so that's what I grew up in. I grew up next to the ocean. And I actually grew up in a showbiz family. My parents are both in the music industry. They run a music production company together. So they make shows and they would manage artists. So there were a lot of drunken musicians at my house growing up. And yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. I grew up in a big family, 4 kids. And I just started dancing and acting in my living room when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I think it just kind of spawned really naturally from how I express myself, I guess. I was very inspired by music and just started messing around. And so I think my mom eventually was like, we need to put her away somewhere. So they just sent me to ballet. And yeah, and then a bunch of stuff happened from there.
Oh, nice. And you said, was it 4
Mhm.
siblings you said you had?
I have 3 siblings, so there's 4 of us. Yeah.
Are you the only creative out of the 4 of you?
I always say that my little brother is like the real actor in the family. He's more like the comedian. So he remembers actually both of my brothers, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and both of my brothers remember every line from every Jim Carrey movie, Adam Sandler. We grew up with a lot of, frat boy humor
Mhm.
films and all the films that we love, The Mask and Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and there's so many. So yeah, my little brother is kind of the most extroverted one, but he's a salesman. My other brother is also hilarious. Like we're a very loud, and we have a really big sense of humor. So everyone's talking over each other at the table and making jokes, and it's kind of like the funniest person gets the floor kind of thing. So I would say that I'm the kind of tortured artist figure. I'm probably the most introverted one in my family, and I'm the one I would say that kind of maybe had the most rigor or discipline from a young age, which is probably why I've survived for such a long time in this crazy, crazy industry. But yeah, I think naturally, in some ways, some of my siblings are much more gifted than I am, but they just made more responsible life choices.
No, for sure. I saw you say words like survive and also like introvert, and I was like, I feel with these words and I resonate with them. I've got two siblings. I'm the youngest, and I'm like I'm in both of those modes usually most of the time. And obviously,
Mm,
there's a lot to talk about with like lost records, and I'll come on to that. But one thing that really struck me, and you did mention in there, was that you did ballet as a young child, and I'm
mhm.
just curious, like, how far did you go with that? And then, just in terms of where you're at in life now, do you credit with that in terms of like where you got in terms of acting? Because I know balance can be a big thing that you learn in ballet, and like also discipline. There's famous examples where I've done in my like sports coverage where a former footballer was a ballet dancer at first, came into football or
Mm.
soccer for the American audience, and it was really like you could see the way he moved was really elegant on the pitch. But I'm just curious, like, how did that shape your experience doing that at a young age?
Definitely discipline and rigor because I would go maybe I mean, I started going progressively more as I got older, but I started when I was 7. They called
Mhm,
me Smiley because whenever we always worked with a live pianist, and whenever the piano would start playing, I would start smiling. And I just felt like I was flourishing in that environment. But after 1 year of that, I got put in the intensive training program, which is like where shit gets real, where you have a Russian ballet
mm,
master. And in some ways, you have to grow up really quickly because you have to get in line, you have to do these kind of rigid exercises. And there's parts of it that really are very expressive and artistic and beautiful, but in order to achieve those results, usually you have to put yourself through
mhm,
a process and in an environment that's kind of like the military. So it kind of has both ends. And I think in the arts and as an actor and in all of these industries where you're really depending on your body and your own discipline and your own kind of autonomy, you need to have both the freedom and expressiveness of an
mhm,
artist and a child, but you need to have this very extreme discipline in order to achieve that and in order to just get through, because sometimes you're not feeling inspired and you don't feel like you're in that kind of spontaneous fun playful energy, but you need to be ready to deliver and you need to find the way to achieve that, and that really depends on you. So
mhm,
it's kind of the less sexy or glamorous side of it, but yeah, it's like doing the work every single day. And for me, I just learned how to go to school, go home, do my homework, and then go to
mm.
dance and do my exercises at the bar. And it just became like a daily practice from a really young age.
Yeah, because obviously can't relate from it. Like when you see it as an observer, it looks beautiful and it's amazing to see what ballet does. But then for the training and the intense purposes, and especially as a young age, it must be pretty brutal, and it sounds brutal for yourself. And obviously, like we move into acting, so I'm going to move forward. Obviously, we are Victoria Diamond now. We're the actor. We work on
Mhm.
a lot of things, and obviously, a big one is Lost Records Bloom Rage, which we were all very excited for when it came out. Toronto and Montreal, we really enjoyed it. You are Dylan Mikaelsen in the game. You do a voiceover and motion capture. Walk us through that. How did you end up working on this project?
I did a self-tape audition. So actors now mostly audition from home. At the time, I was in LA, and I was there for a few months, and I got the audition. And I didn't have a self-tape set up yet, so, I hadn't decided how I was gonna do it, and it just happened to be that I was catching up with a friend who did, Blood and Treasure, a American project that I did a few years back. We were having coffee, and I was like, "Hey, I have to do this audition, I haven't learned my lines yet."
Mm.
And we were gonna meet his girlfriend, but we had 2 hours in between us hanging out and meeting his girlfriend. He was like, "Yeah, I have a setup, we're near my house, like, let's just go shoot it." I hadn't really learned my lines yet. I hadn't taken that much time to think about the character. I think I had looked at some of the references, but I just shot it, and it was just like a total shot in the dark. I felt completely unprepared. And a few weeks later, I found out that I booked it. So yeah, it was just kind of like blindly going into it. I didn't have that much context at all. And I never played Life is Strange. I didn't know about Don't Nod. I didn't really have any background.
Mhm.
So I kind of just stepped right into it.
Just based on that experience as well, I'm just curious because I imagine you go through some roles where you're like constantly preparing and you're getting like loads of things and you're learning of it. In hindsight, how do you feel about that experience that you went in kind of like a bit blindfolded? You went in, just did the audition. You say you didn't feel overly prepared for it, like properly prepared. But I'm just curious, like, how do you feel about that experience? Do you kind of feel like you weren't under as much pressure because you were just gonna, throw roll the dice and see how it goes? But I'm just curious, like, what was that experience like now, thinking back on it?
I didn't have time to overthink it. So I just went with my first instinct.
Mhm.
And that's probably the best way to do it because if you have more time, you kind of explore the layers and you have a lot of time to kind of go in your head, which can be very useful in the preparation process. But I think for that one, it actually really served me to just kind of go with my first impression and my first instinct of it.
No, and obviously, like we watch the performances, and it's amazing just seeing the range that you have with that. And I'm going to chop and churn this because obviously motion capture was done separately from voiceover at different points. But I'm
Mhm.
going to take you into the VO booth first because you will be working with Philip Bache there. I've spoken to
Yes.
a lot of actors that have worked with Philip Bache from Life is Strange and also from Lost Records as well. But obviously, he came on the project a little bit later than expected. Came in. I'm
Mhm.
just curious, what was your experience like working with him, and then I'm curious as well, especially working with the VO director, because Dylan shows two very different ranges of emotion. Sometimes it's a very like self-absorbed, a little bit nasty at sometimes, but then also very much
Mhm.
like you see the vulnerable side of it. What was the experience like working with him in the VO booth for this game?
Working with Phil is chaotic in a sense because his whole method is to get you out of your kind of normal functioning or
Mhm,
normal way of doing things, which, I mean, we're humans, we develop habits and patterns. And in a way, we're always trying to kind of control ourselves and our environment
mhm,
unconsciously. And I feel like Phil is trying to get at the most raw, instinctive reactions
mhm.
and performances. And he has a kind of unconventional way to achieve that. So it can definitely be destabilizing because I've worked with a lot of hard ass ballet masters
Mm,
from a young age were really hard on me. In a way, I felt really good about it because there's this kind of surrendering that has to happen. So it's
mhm.
either going to happen right away and you just accept it, or you're going to go into resistance and be like, what the fuck? Why is he talking to me like that? Or what's going on? I don't understand. And you're just going to lose time.
Yeah,
So I feel like the first time I didn't have any kind of explanation or pretext to
yeah.
that session. Nobody explained to me who Phil was. I was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go record a voice today for a video game."
Mhm,
That's that's the mindset that I was in. So I was like, "I'm gonna go do my thing. I'm gonna go do my job that I do a couple times a week." Cool. And I got in. I was like, "Whoa, okay." Um, it was definitely a feeling of being pushed,
mhm.
but I kind of enjoyed the ride and I kind of all I care about is getting the best result.
Yeah,
So, especially the first time I was like, "Oh, cool, I'm getting pushed." And he's not accepting my okay take. He wants something more. So I
yeah,
felt kind of in a really fucked up way. I found it almost reassuring because I was like, I have someone who is going to kind of drill me to get to the best possible result.
yeah,
So I would say I mean, just like when you go on a roller coaster, there's moments where you're like, you want it to stop. There's moments where you're just on pure adrenaline and you're
mhm,
like in a blissful subliminal state. And, it was all of those things. But ultimately, I found it really interesting because it was so different from the way that I usually work.
mhm.
And that's the beauty of being an actor is that you not only get to explore all these different roles, but you get to explore all these different approaches to the way to get something out of what's inside of you. And this was definitely a very unique experience. Yeah. So the first time I was like, cool. This was really fun. Thank you so much. I feel like I just went on a ride. I feel like I had a full body experience.
Yeah.
It was very visceral, very physical, and very full. Like, I feel like I used every cell in my body
Hmm.
to do voice acting. And so he kind of cut the kind of disconnect that we can have sometimes from, like, okay, I'm doing motion capture, I'm working on the physicality of the character,
Hmm.
and now I'm doing voice work, so I'm working on how that character sounds.
Yeah.
But he kind of obliges you to just go all in,
Hmm.
and it feels like a hot fever dream, and then it's over and you're like, oh shit, okay, that was 4 hours. What the hell just happened? Yeah, so I could go on and on about it, but you don't have a 5 hour podcast. But um I would say that there definitely were moments where I would get, call it resistance. I would
Hmm.
feel resistance, and there were things in my ego as an actor where I was saying in my head, I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional. I don't need to go there. I don't
Hmm.
need you to take me somewhere. I know how to convey emotion. I know how to do my
Yeah.
job. But then there was this other part of me that was like, you know what? Just surrender to it.
Yeah.
And that kind of begets much more interesting results, and you have a more full experience. So it was really cool. It was sometimes frustrating because I wasn't in control, but it's a really interesting experience for sure.
You sound like you've had the complete Philip Bache experience because, as you said earlier as well, you didn't know him before, but like the actors never forget him afterwards, and I've seen that with all the actors I've
Mm,
spoken to. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
because he is very much a genius with the way he clicks with different actors. I think he knows what he needs to do with each actor to like get out what he
Mhm.
needs. And I'm going to ask you as well because I only know a certain amount of body of work that you've done. And again, Dylan has those two range of emotions where it's a little bit mean girl, self-absorbed, kind of nasty, a bit more like a bit more aggressive Swann, but then also with like Kat, she's like loving, sisterly, a bit vulnerable sometimes with Swann as well. How do you feel as an actor approaching those? Which do you find easier, being the kind of villain, quote unquote, or the bit more of the kind of vulnerable, passive character of Dylan?
I definitely feel like a more gentle person. I would consider myself more the victim than the aggressor, I suppose, in the sense that I was raised to be very polite and kind with people, and I don't necessarily have the balls to be outwardly mean or aggressive
Yeah.
with someone. That being said, some of my most interesting experiences have been playing the villain because I connect the villain or the aggressivity or the cruelty to something that is really vulnerable. So it's not like it's multifaceted, but the source of it is coming from the same place. It's someone who's really hurt. It's someone who's feeling really suppressed or repressed.
Hmm.
It's someone who feels stuck and so needs to lash out. It's someone who's so fucking sad or so vulnerable that she needs to lash out to protect herself.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's always so strange to talk about acting in words, but ultimately, the internal experience I was having in both modes, as we could
Hmm.
call them, was from a very vulnerable place. And I was, you know, I guess I had in mind her sense of being trapped,
Yeah.
trapped in a small town, trapped in a family that's in crisis, trapped in a kind of role that she needs to play for her family to keep this kind of balance, or to try to at least keep something that's really off balance, like as level as possible.
Hmm.
And so it's like that kind of repression of her internal emotions and situation that helps in all of the lashing out of emotion. Like, that's kind of the, I guess, internal kind of energetic experience of it. Also, I guess I'm a dancer, so it's hard for me
Yeah.
sometimes to talk about acting because it's like a really sensorial experience. But
Hmm.
yeah, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it's fascinating. It's really interesting to hear that because it's completely different from what we see in the product, and like to see your behind the scenes input. It's always amazing to see that. I'm just curious as well because I will move a bit forward, but I just want to go into the booth as well because um, I imagine Michel would have been there for your sessions because he's usually I've
Mhm.
seen the photos online. What was your experience like working with him? Because obviously he has a bit of a different vibe with Philip, and he's always been very open with even the Life is Strange actors, Lost Records actors. He's always been like, if I if you feel like the line can be done better, then feel free to pitch something because we'll obviously twist it that way. I'm just curious, like, what was your experience like working with him in the booth? Like, were there a lot of interactions, or were they just minimal? Or did you chat with him, or was he just kind of like thumbs up from behind his computer screen?
I literally just pictured Michel being like, um, he would chime in sometimes for context
Mhm.
because he knows the game inside out.
Yeah,
So Philip was more focused on the performance, the raw visceral energy of what we were delivering and how to get us as far as possible, whereas Michel was there to continually put us back in the story. So if
mhm.
there were moments that we were slightly off, or with, there's a million ways that you can say open up the door,
Yeah,
so he would kind of just chime in to weave in more background and context so that we were in the right place
yeah,
emotionally, or yeah, in the intention that we were conveying.
yeah.
And Michel is just wonderful. He's just there also to kind of bring the peace and like the more happy-go-lucky, sweet energy that he brings. Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely like, I've always had a great experience of, like, talking to the actors and their interactions with Michelle. It's always been amazing, and I'm glad that you had the same
Mhm.
experience as well. I'm just gonna go to our Patreon because we have a Patreon, and we had a question submitted by Carly, and she put here, and I quote this: "Thank you for the opportunity, Adnan and Victoria. Lost Records is a wonderful story about growing bonds, and I'd love to hear about your friendships with other cast members grew from your first day on set to the present day." And I imagine someone at home is gonna be sitting there with her rabbits listening to this, so I'll let you talk here.
With her rabbits?
I imagine Olivia Lepore will be talking about because Olivia's photo,
Oh.
she said you have a really good relationships, and all I ever see with Olivia is rabbits and Taylor Swift, so, I
Uh
imagine she's watching this.
Olivia's like a human cupcake. Like, she's just the sweetest person, and so I just wish I could show you my cat, but he's not here for some reason. He's usually anyways, we'll see if he pops up. I'll show you Derek. I didn't actually have that much time with the other actors. Like, we had some mocap days together, and so I kind of stepped into this dynamic that was already formed because the 4 girls had worked on the game for a lot longer than I
Yeah.
had. I would say that my most long-lasting friendship has been with Olivia because she's in Montreal. I adored her. I kind of I think I had met her on the game, but I've seen her around since. We
Mhm,
both do a good amount of voice work, and we connected with another common friend, Val Mervis. So yeah, we've continued staying in touch and going out for coffee, and that's been really, really lovely because she's wonderful. Otherwise, I really loved everybody on the project, but
mm,
I haven't seen them since because everyone's all over the place. I think Natalie's in New York sometimes, Jordan's in Toronto. I really liked Jordan because obviously we're playing a couple, so we had a bit more time to connect.
mhm,
And yeah, he's lovely. He's really artistic, and I would love to collaborate with him on another project for sure. Everyone's lovely, but honestly, I've only seen Olivia since,
mhm.
but I would love to see everyone. And we had a wrap party in Montreal about a month ago, and that was awesome. Meeting all the animators and the countless amounts of people that are behind the scenes that have been giving so much time and energy to this for years now. It was really special to meet all of them as well.
Yeah, it does sound like amazing from the experience of the actors, and Olivia did say, like, the actors in different locations, so it's like, there's a kind of benefit of the 2 of you being in the same area where it's like, "Oh, yeah, we can have a coffee,"
Mhm.
but, like, if Nat is in New York, it's gonna be very difficult to kinda get a hold of in that way.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just curious as well because obviously in the mocap I'll come to Jordan Dawson in a moment. I just wanna start with Olivia as well because I've seen the photo of you and Olivia on mocap, and I know
Mhm.
that there are some interesting scenes that you have in there. Obviously, you have the first sequence in the original introduction to Dylan, take 1 where she confronts Swann, at the movie polish, she's like, "Why are you taking photos of me?" and or she's like, "Why are you taking
Mm-hmm.
video of me?" And she gets really like aggressive. There's like a little bit of a holistic kind of like attitude from her. But then later in the second tape, they show that there's an interview segment where Swann is
Mm-hmm.
talking to Dylan, and she's very vulnerable. The sequences have happened with Kat, where Kat has collapsed. I'm just curious, what was it like when you filmed with Olivia and those two sequences? And then, as you said, you came in later in this project, and then to kind of vibe off her quite, I imagine, quite quickly because production is in full swing. What was it like to work with her on those kind of like really different sequences, both for like an aggressive Dylan and then also kind of like a calmer and like um, chilled Dylan?
Um, it's really strange to be that outwardly aggressive with someone.
Mhm.
At the same time, Olivia as Swann made it really easy because she's so disarming and vulnerable.
Mm.
She doesn't put up a fight, and because there's something that's so pure about her, and especially the way that she was acting, her body language was kind of awkward and apologetic. She was a little bit bullish with that camera,
Yeah.
um, because she needed to. It's for the art, um, but she was like really easy bait. So I
Mhm.
think for someone like Dylan, who's a bully, she Olivia slash Swann was like the perfect prey for her to lash out on. So I experienced that in the mocap where I was just like, okay, this fucking loser is never going to defend herself. So it was just like there was nothing holding me back. And I
Mhm.
think it was really easy to attack her because she has no defenses.
Yeah.
And in the second scene, I guess there's something in Olivia slash Swann's eyes that there's something so innocent, but at the same time very attentive,
Mhm.
and she kind of sees through you. And I think in the interview moments, there's something in my mind unconsciously that's happening with Dylan where she just feels really safe because other than with Corey, she doesn't ever open up like that. And so I think there's something with Swann where she just felt seen. And
Yeah.
she's someone who doesn't get to feel seen and doesn't get to be vulnerable with people. And, there are moments where she lashes out and, she kind of becomes mean Dylan again. But there are those few little flashes where she surrenders to the
Mhm.
experience and she feels safe with Swann. And I think it's so, so important that we have those moments and we have that insight into her.
Yeah.
And I would say, because that was one of my audition scenes, I kind of built her whole trajectory
Mhm.
from that place.
No, that's amazing. And do you when you do those sequences with Olivia, so obviously
Mhm.
I think at least the first sequence has that kind of like Dylan goes from 1 to 100 and then she calms down a little bit when calms down when Corey's there. I'm just curious, like when you film
Mhm.
that as well, is it done in the standard process where they'll film all the moments where you're angry, or is it a constant flipping of emotions that you're doing where it's like you'll go from calm Dylan to kind of like a bit more front forwarding Dylan? Like, how's the process of doing that? Do they film it in certain sequences where they want certain emotions first, or they want the full take as it is?
Uh, they don't really consider your trajectory as an actor. Like the
Yeah,
days are never organized like that. We're shooting in a mocap studio that's so expensive. There's
yeah,
like, I don't know, over 50 cameras. I was just shooting there for another project last week. And it's such an extensive operation that it's more just the scene lineup. So there
yeah.
was this scene where she's lashing out and she's insulting her and everything. So we did that as one segment. And then there's the interview where we kind of see a lot more vulnerable moments, but then she's going to lash out at the
Mm,
end as well. She tends to do all the time. So yeah, it's really organized in a more logistical way, which is, especially when you're shooting film or television, can be really, really challenging. But yeah, mocap is it's so technical, so the challenge is really getting to the essence of the emotional experience of the character as much as you can, whilst like all the technical stuff is going on and you're doing a T pose between every
yeah.
take. And But luckily, I was working with great actors, so it's much easier to just, like, get into the crux of it really quickly.
No, and as you said there as well, you're working with great actors, and obviously Jordan Dawson plays Corey in that.
Mm,
I've already had
mm.
some experiences with some of the actors saying like, Jordan's like a really nice guy, but then you see him go as Corey, and it's like it's kind of unexpected. What was it like working with him and then building that? Because that is, whilst you do interact with other characters, that's the one that has to be the believable one between Corey and Dylan. I'm just curious, like, what was your like reaction working with him and vibing off him, and then also seeing him go from 1 to 100 in like 2 seconds? What was it like working with him on the mocap?
Well, that was excellent because I just had to work off of his natural energy,
Yeah.
which again is very gentle, quite introverted, and
Mhm.
he had something almost a bit enigmatic in the sense that like you don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is very much what is kind of magnetic about Corey is like
Mhm.
that he has this whole kind of world inside of him. And again, I basically met Jordan. We like get suited up. We just started acting together. We didn't have time
Yeah.
to get to know each other on a personal level. So I purely worked off of Jordan in the moment, which is everything I needed for Corey
Yeah.
in the sense of wow, this beautiful, gentle creature who seems really wounded and he has something kind of mysterious about him. And, you know, like there's something very attractive about Jordan.
Mhm.
And then out of nowhere, he becomes this demon
Yeah.
and he's like a raging bull. And you're just like, where the fuck did that come from? So for me, that kind of fed into I know who the real Corey is,
Yeah.
and he's a sweetheart, and he's gentle, and he's non-threatening. So whenever those moments of really extreme violence come out, it's like an exception that
Yeah.
she can just kind of put under the rug. So, yeah, I didn't have to do a lot of kind of searching or use my imagination that much for those performances because again, I just feel like Jordan embodies those facets so naturally.
Yeah, and again, like, it's a testament to the two of you. You have really great chemistry. We see it in the game, and it's amazing just to see how that dynamic unfolds. And obviously, you have a great dynamic with Olivia. You have a great dynamic with Jordan. Obviously, a great dynamic with Natalie for Kat. I'm just curious,
Mm,
how are those sequences like filming with Natalie? Because the two main ones obviously are the Abyss sequence in the second tape, where Corey and I was going to say Nat falling, but Corey and Cat
mm,
falling, depending on choices.
mhm.
They both go into the Abyss, and then also as well the Bloom and Rage concert. Olivia said it was quite like a crazy day that of doing the mocap for it. I'm just curious, like, what was it like working with Nat and then building that sisterly dynamic between the two characters?
Nat in real life is really mature and she's got like a pretty strong energy.
Mm,
So that was interesting because I I'm her big sister, and, like, I grew up with a big sister,
mm,
so who also was very dominating, so my challenge was to dominate her as much as possible,
yeah.
but it also worked really well because Kat refuses to be dominated, and she's so rebellious and, like, she is never doing what she's supposed to be doing, and
Hmm.
so it's, like, this constant frustration for Dylan, and so I feel like Nat embodies that really well. She's also a really great actress, she's, like,
Yeah.
really spunky and, has all this energy, and I think one of the main kind of, I don't know, channels for me was, like, going into frustration. It's
Hmm.
just like, "Why are you doing this?" It's like, "It could not be any worse
Yeah.
already, and you did this, and you're putting yourself in this situation, and I'm micromanaging so many things, and I have to
Hmm.
sacrifice so much for you." And so I think with Kat, it was just constantly coming back to that frustration that again is really connected
Yeah.
to Dylan's deep wound of
Mhm.
like, being on edge all the time of potentially losing her sister and knowing what, the impact that that's going to have on her family and the impact it already has. So I think it was just keeping that alive inside of me. And then every so that every kind of ridiculous situation that Kat would put herself in was just like,
Yeah.
like Marone, like just like so frustrating. I'm watching The Sopranos right now, so
Right, yeah.
Marone. But yeah, anyways, yeah, it was really easy to work with her as an actor, but from Dylan's perspective, it's just like that frustration of trying to keep everything together and her constantly unraveling everything that I feel like I've kind of set up for
Yeah.
her. Yeah, but always connected to so much love that she doesn't want to show.
Yeah, and it shows as well. Like again, we played the games and the Dylan chemistry with Swann and Corey and even Kat is amazing. Obviously, those are the main three characters that Dylan really does interact with in this game, and it is a
Mhm,
testament to what you guys do in the project, which is always amazing to see.
mm.
I'm just curious as well. You've seen what Dylan looks like. When did you remember seeing what she first looked like, and then even the outfits and the different '90s glam that she's wearing as well?
Yeah, I saw her in the breakdown for the audition.
Right.
Yeah. So I already had the image of her in the little bikini. Yeah, being kind of like I grew up with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, and I feel like she's kind of in that world. And, she's super cute and like kind of has this princess look to her. So I think that really informed my body language, especially in the mocap, but even in the way she uses her voice and everything, that was really helpful.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense as well when you're saying it now as well, what you're doing with the performance. Because obviously, sometimes it's an underappreciated art form with the mocap, what you guys do as well. And then you kind of just like listen
Mm.
to the voice, but it's nice to see what you were trying to bring in terms of like different influences. I'm just going to move into a Patreon questionnaire. So this is from Kevin Kestis, and
Mhm.
he's put, "Here's my question. Hey, Victoria, excellent job on your role in Lost Records. What was it like putting yourself in Dylan's shoes, all her issues, dealing with a sick kid sister, an abusive boyfriend? P.S. When I found out Dylan sent Autumn the package, I wanted to see what she looked like in the present too. So Dylan doesn't appear in the physically in the actual game in the second part. But that was the question though.
Mm. I don't do you feel like I've addressed some of the first part of the question?
Yeah,
I
I
can
think
go more into it.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that Dylan is just carrying this weight that she can't
yeah,
express, and that's that's the dynamic in her family, is
mhm,
that we just don't have the space, and we just need you to be responsible.
yeah,
And I think most of us, to some extent, if we've grown up in a family with multiple siblings, I know that I've had that experience in many ways where you're experiencing things, but there's just kind of no time and there's no space. And I think that's just exponentially more heavy and difficult in Dylan's situation because her sister's sick, and they're in this kind of constant uncertainty and threat of things going south. And so for me, Dylan is just dealing with that weight in the best way that she can, and it's just misdirected sadness. That's what her kind of mean girl energy is. It's just that she hasn't had the opportunity or hasn't developed the language to just talk about her feelings and like have a really good cry.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's what she needs. She needs like a really good cry and needs to be given permission to be the little sister.
yeah.
Yeah, just went really deep there.
You did, but I think it kind of adds up though as well because obviously we do see Dylan cry like in a final sequence in the game where she's at
Mhm,
the abyss where Kat and Corey, however that plays out, she is crying, so she's obviously visibly upset. So there's quite a lot of like evident trauma in there as well. Did you feel that any chance like when you were doing the performance, like when you get to that sequence later in the game when she's like crying, did you feel like that
mhm,
the character has like hit like a peak trauma moment in her life after everything
mhm.
that's happened?
Absolutely. A peak trauma moment, but also everything that she's kind of layered
Mhm.
on top of her hurt and despair and devastation gets kind of cracked open.
Yeah.
And it's just, she's literally on edge, and she just doesn't have the bandwidth to mask it. And so I feel like it's a very cathartic moment for that character, not for the way that she's experiencing it, but I guess for the audience. For me playing Dylan, it felt really good to just finally get to crack. Yeah, and obviously Phil was, uh, yeah, it was very helpful in those moments because he didn't let me go halfway. Like, he really pushed me, and I really did crack in the
Yeah.
booth. I had no choice. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it,
that was a
and
big one.
I can expect it to kind of get to that culmination for the character because I think there's so much going on with Dylan. It's very exciting to like see her story unfold in all kinds of different ways.
Mhm.
I'm just curious as well because, like, obviously, I kind of alluded to it at the very beginning. We have Dylan and we also have Sophie from This Bed We Made. So these games you were doing like in a very condensed period. I think This Bed We Made came out in 2023. Lost Records was being done, so I don't know the exact timelines. And don't worry, I'm not going to make you break them down. But you're working on two different games. But I'm just like thinking when you look back on the characters, even Sophie and Dylan, do you see similarities with like the characters or even like with the performances? Because I know some moments where Sophie is just very like chilled and she's not going to say anything, but then sometimes she does stand up for herself. And it's the same with Dylan. Like Dylan will stand up for herself, but then she might show the vulnerable sides as Sophie does, where she's a little bit like, shy about what she's going to say. Her emotions maybe aren't fully expressed. Just your perspective on the two characters now, having done them.
It's very interesting because I never would have necessarily drawn similarities between the two.
Mhm.
Obviously, they're spawning from me, from
Yeah,
my life experience, from the way that I express myself. The way that I experienced them was as two very, very different people.
yeah,
And also, one of them is in the 90s, one of them is in the 1940s.
yeah.
So, all of that context really influenced the way that I approach those characters.
Hmm.
And, one is very timid,
Hmm.
and the other one is she's a bully.
Yeah.
She's bullish and aggressive. However, both of them have a sick family member
Mm.
that basically informs every aspect of their life and
Yeah.
their internal environment. So I haven't thought about that much, but I think that those two circumstances definitely influence the characters in similar ways. They just have very different ways of dealing with them.
Yeah.
But the way that I approached Sophie was very, very different from the way that I
Yeah.
approached Dylan, for sure.
Maybe it's just me
Yeah.
drawing the parallels because, like I said to your podcast, I was like, when I realized who you were, I was like, oh my god! I was like, now I see it because I've spoken to Olivia, I've done these games and covered stuff, and I was like, oh my god! I was like, it's a very small world um,
Yes.
to see
Yeah.
in there. But I think it's two really amazing characters because if people haven't played This Bed We Made, they should really play it because you get to see two very incredible ranges that you're giving there for characters. And for me, it's maybe just drawing parallels because I've seen certain shades of Sophie in Dylan and vice versa. So no, it's really interesting to hear that. And I'm going to ask you as well because obviously Victoria's in the game for so much. I try not to ask this question as much anymore because I feel like you might be stepping on creative like visions from other people, but there's also a setup for this because even Michel says here on Twitter, he said, at quote unquote, I wish we had even more time to flesh out, which was Dylan, for example. He really liked it, and I think
Mhm.
we all really like Dylan as well. Um, if you could explore one more thing in Dylan, what would you pick in the game? If there's something you wish you could have a bit more time with, because there's so much going on with her story, and she kind of pops in and then just pops out, and I'm like, I wish that there was something else. Because, like, for example, people are
Yeah.
very interested in her future because, like, she's still alive in the future of the game, and they're kind of curious about what she's like as an adult. But is there anything you wish we saw a bit more of with Dylan?
Such an interesting question, because it's true that we always see Dylan in relationship to the other characters, but we
Hmm.
don't get to really explore this character in her own world. I would be super curious to see what her inner life is in terms of what are her dreams?
Yeah.
What is holding her, or what is the thing that, like, obviously we see everything that's holding her back. We
Mm-hmm.
see everything that she's stuck in, but what is the thing that she really wants to live that she
Yeah.
can't even express? I feel like she has this kind of hidden gift. Like maybe
Mhm.
she has a beautiful voice, or maybe she's a really good drawer, or she's, there's something like a kind of gentle poetic soul in her that just hasn't had any space to be harnessed or developed. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to see what aspects of her inner world have we not seen that are actually really beautiful and positive and creative.
No, absolutely, because I think, like, there's so much to maneuver with that character. I think she's got so much layers to it, and I think there's, like, possibilities
Hmm.
even in the future if they do make another game in that series, even if it's a direct sequel or not, even if it's just an
Hmm.
entry in that universe, I think she could just be a reoccurring character because I think she's got so much to her. And yes, fingers crossed that we do
Yeah.
see that game as well, because I do really like to see you in that game. And one thing I did see you in, because immediately I was like, hang on a minute, was the Abyss music video. Because
Yeah.
even Olivia told us as well, she's like, I was at the launch party and she's like, I saw it. I was like, hang on a minute. And she even said that you didn't know that you were getting involved in
That's
something Lost
so
Records.
weird.
Walk me through that. How did you end up in that? And then what was your reaction like when you realized it was related to Lost Records?
Ugh, it's so random. I used to do a lot of music videos and stopped doing them many years ago, and then this popped up. I didn't have any context. Like, I didn't receive the script. I knew it was Derek Branscombe, the director who
Yeah.
I've worked with a few times, who I think is amazing. And I know of Malcolm Bone. I didn't know them personally at the
Yeah.
time. So I was just like, oh, that's just a really nice group of people, and I feel like they're going to do something interesting. Then I think I got, it wasn't a storyboard, but it was maybe just like a visual treatment of how they were going to approach it.
Yeah.
And it said something about the abyss. And I was like, that's fucking weird. This abyss thing. Like, what's up with this abyss thing? Because it happens to me sometimes where, like, say, the past few months, I've done a bunch of projects that are about the end of the world. And so I'm just like, okay, that's in the zeitgeist right now.
Yeah.
But this particular thing, I was like, that's so odd. Okay. I didn't have that much time to look at it, and it was super last minute. Don't think I even knew at the time that Milk and Bone had done the soundtrack of
Right.
Lost Records yet. And then I think it either happened because one of the Milk and Bones girls added me on Instagram, and I maybe saw it on their Instagram, or it was just the day that I showed up at a chalet, like, I don't know, and 2 hours away from Montreal with everyone, like in this country house where we were
Yeah.
shooting. And we got the scripts live, like we got the scripts the day that we were shooting.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, this is inspired from the abyss of, Bloom and Rage, Lost Records. And I was just like, oh shit, that's so bizarre. And I'm playing the mean girl. Like the mean girl thing was also a coincidence.
Right.
Um, yeah. So it was kind of a spur of the moment realization where we were just like, this is very strange. But again, Montreal is a pretty small place. It just kind of lined up that way. And then we used it and I used it. And so I think there were just like little sprinkles of Dylan in, also like it was purely contextual. It was just like, I am the mean girl in this group. These are kind of, similar characters or inspired by. So I just went with it.
No, I can see that as well, because like, when we saw the video, we were like, "There's Victoria Diamond." It's like, "Is this Dylan?" It's just like we're getting, like, connection points, but no, it was amazing to see it. What was it like actually shooting it on the set as well, and then with Milk and Bone Girls? Because I did think that your Mean Girls-esque performance was outstanding, and if
Thank you.
you ever get the chance, I'd go and recommend watching Life is Strange and seeing Victoria Chase, because like, if they ever make a film or a TV show, put Victoria Diamond in that role because like she's fit it perfectly. But what was it like when you put your sweater on, sat at the table, and went pure like just antagonistic and
It's like
servile?
it's like really, what's the word? It felt like I experienced this before playing a villain. It's like something very, oh God, there's like a perfect word for this, but it's like, it's like Schadenfreude when it feels good to see someone else
Oh,
suffer. But anyways, it's like that as a verb. It's like she's just kind of sharpening her blade.
Yeah.
And, and it's like the sharpest blade, and it's just like glistening in the light. And yeah, I feel like it was that kind of experience of just toying with them. It's so hard to put energy into words sometimes. Like, it's the most abstract thing, but it's fun. I mean, actors always say that it's fun to play the villain because you go into zones, or you have permission to be a way that's not accepted in society.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm a very nice person. I'm very polite. I'm from the Maritimes. Everyone's super nice with each other and friendly. And it's just really enjoyable to be able to go into something that's kind of sadistic or mean or dark. I really like playing in, darker things. There's
Yeah.
something about it that really draws me, and I like watching things that are dark. I like kind of like melancholic, dark music. I like things that are very grandiose. And so we actually played some of the song before we started shooting, and it just kind of naturally had its own effect on me. And it's a fun zone to be in.
It sounded like it was amazing. That's my favorite song from the soundtrack. I love Milk and Bone because of this
Mm.
game. And
Epic, epic. Yeah, they did an amazing job. Yeah, they're amazing too. Those two
yeah.
girls, Camille and Laurence, they're so funny. We laughed so much. It was hilarious. Like, they were super late nights. We did 2 days, 2 nights of shooting. And yeah, it was a really delightful experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've become like their Baby Dreamer EP was amazing that they released amid Lost Records, and I've like become a huge fan. I remember them in Life is Strange too, but like more so recently, which is quite nice. It's always nice when Michel introduces us to music and also the Don't Nod team as well. So obviously, like I said earlier as well, it's kind of alluded to that Dylan does continue in the game, that she's there. We don't actually see her, but it seems like there's a place for her in the future. I'm just curious, like,
Mhm.
obviously we have no scripts, we have no idea what happens next or anything else. If you're going to reprise her, how would you think you'd play her when she's an adult version? Because obviously she's 20 in 1995, she's 47 in 2022, and say if the story continued at that point, say it's like a new bunch of girls and Dylan is still there in Velvet Cove at 47 years old, how do you think you would approach that character as an older version?
I'm not the writer. I just had a flash of like two parallel destinies, and one was a kind of washed up, like, dejected woman who's like been chain smoking and has gray green skin, and is just like so over it. But I then got a flash of like someone who's really put together and has had a very kind of like turned that tragedy into a formative experience, and has become someone who has taken really good care of herself and
Mm.
is maybe a teacher or a mentor or a really good mom. And I kind of feel that that would be more, maybe less dramatically interesting, but yeah, I kind of have a feeling that like she always had this big dream, and after that happened to her, she put the
To
wheels into motion.
help you with this as well.
Sorry?
No, no, to help you with this as
Yeah.
well. So in the game, it says that she's still in Velvet Cove, or it alludes to that, where it just seems to
Oh, she's
suggest,
still there.
where it just seems to
Oh.
suggest as well that she might be running the Mickelson Ranch, because there's a kind of a flyer that
Oh,
says
yeah.
"Welcome to the Mickelson Ranch," and it's like, has she taken over? Is she running that now because of everything that happened?
That totally makes sense because I feel like she has that boss energy. Yeah. And it's funny because I haven't spoken about this, but my sister, my older sister, really was a bully with me,
Okay.
um, growing up. And, she just has so much chutzpah. She has balls.
Yeah.
And she's a very intimidating person. And I've actually played a lot of roles that have tidbits of my sister, but she's an excellent businesswoman. So as a teenager, when she was more tortured, it ended up coming out as bully energy, and she was kind of a mean girl. But now in the business world, like, she is a boss,
Yeah.
and it really serves her. So I can see that happening with Dylan, absolutely.
Because you
Yeah.
alluded to it before as well, that there was like that kind of thing with Dylan that you could take away from that sister experience. I'm just curious, have you ever told her this now that you see parts of her like in your performances that you do that?
Definitely told my mom, and she finds it hilarious.
Right. Of course.
I don't know if I've ever told her because I'm afraid that it would offend her.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it would offend her, but she would know what I'm talking about. And
Right.
yeah, and she probably would be flattered in a weird way. But that's something I definitely don't go out of my way to talk about. Like if there are elements of someone I'm close with that I bring into a character, I don't think I usually tell the person because it's kind of like a little secret and there's something so intimate about these aspects of other people in your life. And I always wonder about writers, like how they deal with their relationships because they are kind of like thieves of very personal stories and elements, and sometimes they even talk about their own lives in a really, really intimate way.
I mean, they put it in their work. I think that one of the most famous examples I did when I was studying was Steven Spielberg. His father figure is always
Yeah.
missing in his films. It's always the single
Yeah.
parent, and it shows. And I should also say that I've been studying to become a counselor. So when you said like I've taken experiences
Mm.
from other people, I would say that's also a natural experience with depending on which counselor you're talking to, because to take those experiences and to mold them into something else, it's like the purest form of art in a both a sinister but also kind of like a good way, isn't it, for an actor? So I think if you can't tap into personal experiences, then it's not going to really make the authentic portrayals. But it is interesting to hear that though, that was kind of an experience that does kind of like incorporate into these characters. And I'm just
Mhm.
curious as well because like I'm projecting now and rewriting the story in parts as well. But hypothetically speaking, obviously we know Corey fell into the hole, and we know Jordan Dawson's very good at climbing. If he climbed out of the hole as Corey, and Corey turned up in that 2022 timeline, say if he's still the same age, but Dylan has got older, based on the way that you portray the character, based on your experience of the character, the knowledge you have of the character, do you think that Dylan at that age would forgive someone like Corey? Because in the game, it's suggested that he's an abuser. There's like a and mark on her head at one point. I think the Don't Nod team has even patched it in the game to make it more visible, saying that she's
Mhm.
got a mark. Do you think at that age she's kind of the character that would forgive someone like Corey?
I feel like she would have a lot of wisdom by then. And obviously, this is all conjecture, but
Of course.
I think that she would sit him down and, in a very frontal way, say, look at what you did to me. And I want you to take it in. And I want you to understand what you did and how vulnerable I was back then.
Mhm.
And you had no right. And so I don't think that she would berate him or start yelling or get upset. I think that in a really grounded way, she would just say, listen, I want you to understand what the consequences of your actions were. And so, yes, I think there would be an element of forgiveness, but first, I think there would be a kind of reconciling of just letting him know,
Yeah,
yeah, what he did and who he was and the impact that he had, and also knowing that he was completely unconscious at the time, like, he was doing his best, as fucked up as that is.
no, it makes like because we when we were playing the tapes as well, like the first and second tape, we thought me and my co-host Adam thought like he might be a redeemable character because of the way he treats Kat at the end of the game. It's like maybe he is a little bit misunderstood, and that's amid the Dylan situation. But you see that he's nothing but pure evil at the end of it, and it's like okay, that makes a lot more sense with the way that they were going with the story. So to give you perspective in the way that Dylan could treat it that way, that would also make sense. But I'm also just curious as well because there's two more things here as well, which is that um, in the other side, depending on the endings, and I'm going to walk you through this as well, there is an opportunity that, for
Mhm,
example, Dylan will pin the blame onto Corey about what happens in that amid the
mhm.
Mikaelsen Ranch when he falls into the abyss. And there's even theories and stuff at the minute thinking about what happens now because Corey's in the abyss and Kat's in the abyss. And say if Corey goes on a full blown like rampage, like revenge path, do you see Dylan being someone that could be in his warpath? Do you think he's like after Dylan because of like the fact that she stood up for Kat? Because we see a turning point in Dylan. I think you might remember some of the motion capture scenes where it's Swann in the bedroom with Kat and then Corey, and Corey's being a dick to all three of them, and then she stands up for Kat depending on certain choices. And then even as you filmed some of the Abyss sequence, there is a sequence where Dylan will join Kat and throwing Corey in with the girls. I'm just curious, like,
Mhm.
how do you think that would approach it as well in terms of if it was like a revenge path from Corey? Do you think that Dylan's someone who would be in his path, or do you think that she would be able to just she wouldn't be in his path? Do you think that he's not got that much hate towards her?
After everything that happened, she would be fighting him. She would be on the other side. Because ultimately, I feel like Corey is kind of a crutch for
Mhm.
Dylan because she has nowhere else to go. She has no one to talk to. Like, she has a trauma bond with
Yeah,
Corey. So at that point, she would be defending her sister, she would be defending her family. And I feel like underneath it all, Dylan is misled, but she has really good values, and her values are very much her family. And so she would be the good fighting evil for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Um, No, I like that as well because I like the trauma bonding thing, and I kind of want to pull. I kind of skipped it here because we're heading towards the finish line, but I do want to pull two questions back in as well and kind of phrase them to you because I was going to ask you, had you like met someone who was Dylan like in your real life, and I know obviously you've talked about that, but I'm just kind of curious,
Mhm.
like when you look at Dylan, do you see has your perception changed on certain people like that you've met in your life who have been like Dylan based on this game? And then even as open-ended as a question I can give you, is she misunderstood or is she exactly what you get in the game? Do you think there's more to Dylan than just beyond that perception? Is she always going to be a bully?
I wouldn't have been able to be interested in this character if I thought that was all there is to her.
Okay.
And I don't believe that any human is black and white. I really I think we're so multifaceted and complex. And again, I'm watching The Sopranos right now.
Great.
Tony Soprano to me is one of the most interesting protagonists of all of the history of television. I
Yeah.
just find him fascinating because you see him with his family and you see him with his brothers,
Hmm.
and he has aspects that are so loyal and loving and warm, but he's a psychopath on the other hand. And the only way that I would have been able to approach Dylan is knowing that she's behaving the way that she behaves because she's really hurt and she's stuck. And it's just like all this kind of energy that's pent up inside of her that just needs to lash out somewhere because it needs to go somewhere. But no, I don't think this is, very much my opinion on it, and
Yeah.
everyone can have their opinion. But I think that she's a sad, scared little girl inside, and has really clumsy, unelegant ways of dealing with that. But that's all she knows, and she just hasn't been educated. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Or you feel
Yeah.
like I'm missing an element?
No, because I think I kind of wanted to tie in with one more thing just for your perspective as well. Because obviously the
Mhm.
game's heavily laced in the 90s. You grew up in the 90s as I
Mhm.
did. Did you start seeing those tropes when you did the performance? Because a lot of the things you were saying do fall into that thing where she's like, oh, she's insecure, she's a little bit insecure, she's got like, these kind of frailties. And you watch any TV show or like film from the
Mhm.
1990s and how they depicted a young, like beautiful woman and the way she'd be like a bit of a bully and then she'd have a bit of a complex layer. Did you see these tropes in the game when you started to like record where it was like, oh, actually, I can kind of see where these influences are, where it's like the 90s and I've lived experiences in the 90s as well.
It's so funny because I never thought about that, but I really know I feel like she is a character that I've seen in a lot of movies growing up in the 90s.
Yeah.
And she's also even high school, like
Mhm.
me going through junior high and high school, there were girls like that. I had a phase like that as well, where it was like a group of girls and we kind of like I even because you're so I can only think of the French word like influençable, like yeah, easily influenced
Yeah.
when you're that age and you just want to fit in. So, and just even like her aesthetic, the way that she presents herself. Again, I think in life, we're just kind of the result of what we pick up on and what we see, and we're just
Mhm.
trying to survive. So, yeah, I think that she is very much a character of the 90s and also a result of the influences in the zeitgeist at the time, both in film and television and music, but as well in society. Like that was an archetype in those
Yeah.
years. I think it still exists, but like in a really different form. So yeah, good job, Don't Nod, because they really, yeah, they portrayed that in a really accurate way now that I think of it.
Yeah, they did throw like a lot of left because I think some of the early fears we had was that Corey and Kat were sisters because the way he's like approaching her, we didn't even click Dylan at some points. I didn't click Dylan at all. And I was like, oh, actually, she's a sister. And then you can see how the dynamics unfold. And I think even when you said that,
Mhm.
I still think someone like Dylan exists. I just don't think she has the aesthetic as it is now. I think because 2025 is very different from 1990s. And obviously, I know that
Mhm.
I've had you for a long time, so thank you so much. And I'm going to end on one final question, and it's obviously has to be
Mhm.
done with this way. So this is from Kevin Lackner from Patreon. He's got, I'm going to ask the obvious. What would Victoria throw into the abyss, and what would Victoria like to get in return, in character or real life?
Oh God, can the abyss is still so mysterious to me. I don't really understand what it is.
So
Like I know we disappear there, but I bet there's a bunch of discussion forums on this.
yeah, so it's interesting because we've actually had this
Mhm.
with Olivia and also with Amelia, and they've both been kind of like, what does it give in return? So, depending on how the game goes, obviously, we see, for example, Corey and Kat fall in the game into the abyss later. Towards the end of the game, Swann
Mhm.
has the option. Swann doesn't even have the option. Swann goes into the abyss because she goes
Mhm.
into it. But earlier in the game, when the game plays out, the girls throw something into the abyss. So they throw an item into the abyss, and then they have a bit of like a trade off. So it's almost like, for example, Nora becomes famous in life later. She becomes an influencer, but she doesn't become rock star famous. She wanted to be a rock star when she was older with like Autumn. So at the moment, I can't give you a definitive answer what the abyss is because even Michel's been really cryptic with that, even though we're trying to, get to Michel on
Right?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Or it seems, in my opinion, if you want it to base it on my opinion, it's like a trade off. So it's like a whatever you throw in there gives you equal weight of value. So, for example, if I push my co-host Adam into it, I could trade something in on a significant level because it's a human sacrifice. But for example,
Wow.
if I threw my iPhone in there, it's just like a technological thing where it's like I want to be an inventor and I throw the iPhone in there, and then I end up making the next Amazon or something like a bit of a smaller smaller version. But it's kind of like that. So it doesn't seem to suggest certain things, but it shows that when the characters throw something in there, it gives something in return, sort of like
So
a
could I
trade off.
like okay, could I throw in like my favorite house plant and then have a forest emerge
Oh,
or like a
well, that
beautiful
could be the
garden?
case. So Olivia's one was that she was going to throw the hairs of her rabbit in at rabbit's first marbles and pebbles, but then she changed that to throwing the hair of her close friend who passed away, Megan. So she was very young, and
Wow.
she's like, "I'll throw that in there." So she seemed to be quite open with being like, "It's going to give me something good in return." So you can throw whatever you like in there. Um,
Like something you want to get rid of?
It seems to be like something that you want to kind of like gain value from or something that it gives you back in return. So if it was me, it's like I want Jordan Dawson to appear on the podcast and I'd throw his name into, into the abyss. And lo and behold, he pops up on the podcast. I kind of always see it as that as like a trade off where it's like, depending on the scale of the item, that's what you get in return.
That's so interesting. I don't know. I hate to disappoint you because I feel like it's such an interesting question, but not one that I can just throw away. I don't want to say the wrong answer, but let me think about that.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind that you feel like you'd
Well,
put in?
I really thought about material things.
Yeah.
Like there's a part of me that wants to be liberated from material things. And so it was interesting to think of like, things that you like that serve you, but at the same time liberating yourself from, all your responsibilities. So there's a part of I guess my adult responsibilities. I don't know what what object could represent that, but like my cell phone or my computer or my car keys or just like these material things that are really useful in the 21st century but that are also kind of burdens and take you away from just like the pure joy of life and the ability to be here and to enjoy like what the actual human experience is. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be in a thing, but I was just like, I would just throw my house in there. I'd throw my phone, my laptop, and just be like, I just want to be able to have fun and like have wonderful adventures and to not be so caught up with the small things.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
let me change this then for you a bit, make it a bit more easier. So, I'm gonna hijack Kevin's question here. So instead of the Abyss, let's use the Bloom and Rage box because it's packaged there.
Hmm.
It's apparently sent by Dylan. Like, there's still big question marks about that. The Bloom and Rage box that we have, the one that Cat puts stuff in. What item would you put into that? That had to be sealed away for 27 years. There's
For
no,
27 years?
yeah, there's no other like connotations like the Abyss style. But it's, if you wanted to put an item in there, because you're saying that you have all these kind of things that you feel like you just don't want to be like adult responsibility, put that away, don't have to deal with
Yeah.
it. But if you could put one thing into that box at the end of the production, you'd be like, okay, I'm done here. That's it. I'm not going to see that again. What would it be?
It would be photographs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
Photographs of a specific relationship.
oh, nice.
Yeah. And I would just shut that away and look back on it when I have a lot more perspective.
That's nice. I think that's a good approach to take with things. I think perspective helps after a long period of time. Um, can I
Absolutely.
pry and ask what it is, or am I not allowed? You don't have to
You're
say if you don't
allowed.
want to.
Well, it's a love relationship.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
That was very painful to end. And yeah. And there's something interesting about just like leaving it in the past, not having any, because now we have technology that kind of brings us back all these memories and fragments all the time. And I think there's something really interesting in just like putting the past in the past and not being able to access it anymore. And then,
Mm,
27 years later, you still have the same essence, but you're like a completely different person. And that would be really interesting to like have that kind of blackout and then
yeah.
go back and yeah, see where you are. That would definitely give really interesting perspective.
I think it's a good answer because obviously we're around the same age and like we lived the 90s, and I've seen it all the time where people talk
Mhm.
about how hard it is for breakups, and it is hard because you only have to go on going to show my age, you only have to go on like Facebook or something like Instagram and you can instantly have instant access to that person. And then you see those like
Mhm.
old movie tropes where people would bump into someone, it's like, oh, we broke up like 10 years ago. It's like we haven't seen each other, and it's like the world is so connected that you don't get those experiences.
No,
But
like
no,
I
I think
literally know what you ate for breakfast
yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's really fucked up.
yeah, it's hard. I think it's
Yeah.
hard to detach yourself from the way of life for technology. And I think, for example, Lost Records has been one of those games that's been really interesting for us to see how far we've changed as a society for both good and
Oh,
bad,
it's
and
so
the
good.
messages.
I just want to add to that, like I for a while was watching only DVDs
Oh, really
and yeah, and my collection because during the pandemic I lived in the country for a while.
nice.
And the collection was all movies from the 90s, 80s, some early 2000s, and I just find it so comforting. And even watching The Sopranos right now, like, they have their flip phones,
Yeah,
they're not on their smartphones, they don't have Instagram, they don't have social media, and I'm just, like, such a fan of the analog days.
I agree with you. Well, I always say this to people
That's my
because,
jam.
like, I'm not on Netflix, so for example, I don't have any of the streaming services, and I always say to
Mm.
people, like, a young generation of kids don't know the experience of going to Blockbuster with your parents and picking a DVD
Ugh,
out of choice, because that's the most
ugh,
important thing
so
when you're
good.
picking out of choice. Like,
Yeah.
we played Lost Records because we knew Michel and the Don't Nod team's work, and it was a choice to play it rather than an algorithm feeding it to us saying you need to play this game
Mhm.
because of that. So I think that's an element that is lost where it's like, word of mouth. Like I don't know how you watch The Sopranos. Did someone recommend it to you to watch it?
I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, but I also go through long periods where I don't watch any TV and I
Yeah,
don't have any subscriptions and I'm reading books or just doing other things. And I feel like it's so healthy. I sleep so much better. Yeah, I just feel so much better if I'm not. binging something, but once in a while, I know that there's something that I have to see, and it's just been a million years that I've been hearing about The Sopranos, and I just didn't have the time, or I was like, I'm just not ready to invest in it because I know it's going to be so much time, but when the time is right,
Yeah.
I'm going in. And yeah, that just came up in the past few months. I'm kind of in and out of it. But yeah, I really chose this moment to finally go into it and see what it's all about. And I've always loved mafia movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, to kind of see the evolution of this family and just the brilliance of the writing and the actors and everything is so, so interesting and enjoyable. But again, in small amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's just there's endless content now, and it takes up a lot of time and energy, so I like to take breaks.
Yeah, I know how you feel. Like I've watched some Sopranos as seminal, and my current plans is to watch Twin Peaks because I know Michel is heavily inspired by Twin
I wanna
Peaks.
watch it too.
My life's gonna flash
Yes,
before my
yeah,
eyes when I watch that. So I'm
so
interested to watch
true.
that next. But like I know what you mean by Sopranos because like I've loved watching some of the classic TV shows. So I'm glad that you're watching it, and I look forward to hearing what you think by the end because a lot of people have very different
Oh, yeah.
feelings on things. But we won't ruin that because we're gonna end here. So thank you so
Mhm.
much, Victoria. It was an absolute pleasure having you on here. I think it was unbelievable to hear your experience about Dylan and Sophie. I could honestly speak to you about a 5-hour podcast if we had one, but like otherwise it'll go too far. But I hope everyone's enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, please do consider dropping subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share your friends. Help support the channel, helps keep up to date with all the content we do as well. And the Lost Records Journal is available on all podcast services. So you can get this podcast on there. You can get our interview with Olivia Lepore, Amelia Sargisson. Stay tuned. Hopefully there's more to come as well. Victoria, one last time, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing more performances from you. I think the three that I've seen as well, especially the Abyss music video, the performances, Dylan, and also as well Sophie, are really seminal for me. Just have my first introduction to you. So it's a testament to your amazing work that you've done so far, and hope to see you in many more games in the future.
Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in and your interest in these amazing companies and creators because I think they put in so much love and they put in so much time and creativity. And it's really genuine artistic love and work. And I'm so happy that people are actually enjoying it and investing so much into it.
Absolutely. And thank you for that wonderful message. And obviously, a big shout out to our Patreon subscribers for supporting the channel. As you're doing, you can go and see us on Patreon if you do want to support us. But we'll sign off here. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for the next episode. See you later, guys. Bye.